There is a thief in your house. It arrives every single night. It demands 1/3 of your assets. It demands your consciousness. It demands your agency. And you let it in. You have no choice. We call this thief sleep. For the entirety of human history, we have been slaves to the circadian rhythm. We are biological machines running on a battery that drains every 16 hours. We spend 25 years of our lives, a quarter of a century, paralyzed in the dark, hallucinating vividly, vulnerable to predators, unable to build, unable to love, unable to think. Think of the wasted potential. Think of the symphonies unwritten because the composer was too tired. Think of the cures unfound because the scientist had to go to bed. Think of the love stories that ended because there simply wasn't enough time. We accepted this. We called it nature. We romanticized the rest. We treated sleep as a sanctuary. But what if it wasn't a sanctuary? What if sleep was nothing more than a glitch, a legacy code left over from our evolution as prey animals, hiding in caves? In the early 21st century, the perspective shifted. Sleep was no longer viewed as a spiritual necessity, but as a mechanical inefficiency, a waste product removal system. We realized that the brain only sleeps to flush out adenosine and toxic proteins, the garbage of consciousness. The question arose, what if we could take out the garbage without stopping the factory? It arrived on a Tuesday. The Chronos Protocol, a gene therapy treatment developed by a coalition of neurotech conglomerates. It didn't just suppress tiredness, it engineered the brain to clean itself in real time. It decoupled the glymphatic system from the sleep state. One injection, permanent wakefulness, no crash, no side effects, no earth. The marketing slogan was simple. 3 words that changed the trajectory of the human species. Own your time. This is the history of the era of light. This is the story of how we bought time and paid for it with our souls. The early days were not terrifying. They were magnificent. You have to understand the sheer intoxication of it. Imagine waking up at 7 a.m., working a full day, spending the evening with friends, and then, when the clock strikes midnight, you don't slow down, you don't yawn, you feel as fresh, as sharp, as alive as you did at dawn.
I've designed 3 skyscrapers in the last month. 3. It used to take me a year to do one. It's like the flow state never ends. I finish a draft at 3 a.m. and I just keep I learned Italian last week just for fun. I read the entire canon of Western philosophy in a weekend. I feel like a god. I feel limitless.
Elias wasn't alone. The collective IQ of the planet seemed to jump 20 points overnight. With the extra 8 hours, humanity effectively gained a 3rd life. The universities were the first to adapt. They opened night campuses. Students could double major, triple major, finishing PhDs in 18 months. The libraries were packed at 4 a.m., buzzing with debate and discovery. Then came the medical breakthroughs. Cancer research is a numbers game. It requires man-hours. Suddenly, we had 33% more man-hours. We cracked the protein folding problem in 6 months. We mapped the deep ocean. We launched the Mars terraforming platforms ahead of schedule. And socially, it was a party that never ended. The night economy exploded. Coffee shops became 24-hour lounges. Parks were installed with day towers, massive lights that mimicked the frequency of the sun. You could play baseball at 3 a.m. You could go grocery shopping at 5 a.m. The distinction between day and night became archaic. We switched to a universal coordinated time. There was no tomorrow. There was just a continuous flowing now. We looked at our ancestors, those sleepy, drowsy creatures who spent half their lives unconscious, with pity. We had evolved. We had transcended biology. But in our euphoria, we missed the fine print. We forgot that civilization is built on scarcity. When you make time infinite, you make it cheap. It started with the flex labor laws. Before the protocol, the 8-hour workday was a compromise based on biological necessity. A human being needed 8 hours of work, 8 hours of leisure, and 8 hours of sleep. It was the physical limit. But once the physical limit was removed, the economic logic collapsed.
The Global Labor Board has announced the new double shift standard. Economists argue that limiting a worker to 8 hours when they are biologically capable of 24 is an artificial bottleneck on GDP. Starting Monday, the standard work week will be adjusted to 16 hours a day, 4 days a week.
It sounded reasonable at first. You work more, you earn more, right? Wrong. When the labor supply doubles, wages halve. It is basic macroeconomics. Suddenly, everyone was working 16 hours a day, but they were making the same purchasing power they used to make in 8. Why? Because the cost of living skyrocketed. Real estate is a function of time. A bedroom is occupied for 8 hours of sleep. But if no one sleeps, a bedroom is wasted space for 8 hours. Landlords realized this immediately. The hot bunking system was replaced by hot living. Apartments were rented in 8-hour shifts. You didn't rent a home, you rented a time slot. You had the apartment from 8 to 16. Then you had to leave so the next tenant could use it. Where did you go? You went to work, or you went to the consumption zones.
I haven't seen my husband in 3 months. We live in the same unit, but my shift is 800 to 2000. His is 2000 to 800. We high five in the hallway. That's our marriage now. A high five and a rent check. I miss dreaming about her. I don't dream anymore. I just exist.
This was the hidden cost. Sleep was the mechanism of intimacy. Lying next to someone in the dark, vulnerable, unconscious. That is the highest form of trust. When we removed the need for sleep, we removed the vulnerability. We became armored tanks, passing each other in the bright lights, fully functional, fully efficient, and entirely alone. We thought we were buying time, but we were actually selling our humanity to the algorithm, and the algorithm was hungry. The human brain is an information processing machine, but every machine has a buffer limit. Before the protocol, sleep acted as a firewall. For 8 hours a night, you were offline. You could not be advertised to. You could not be radicalized. You could not be sold a lifestyle. Your brain had time to sort, file, and delete the data of the day. Without sleep, the input never stopped. The content wars began. Media companies realized they had 24 hours of attention to capture. They flooded the zone. The news cycle sped up so fast that history became a blur. A war would break out at 9 o'clock and be forgotten by 2 o'clock because a celebrity scandal dropped. We developed info obesity. Our minds were stuffed with useless data, memes, headlines, rage bait, trivia. We couldn't focus on anything for longer than 6 seconds. We lost the ability to synthesize deep thoughts. We lost deep work. We became reactive processors. Input, reaction, output. Input, reaction, output. We were awake, yes, but were we conscious?
We made a mistake, a category error. We thought sleep was just for the body. We thought it was just chemical cleaning. We forgot about the subconscious. The subconscious is a pressure valve. It needs to vent. It vents through dreams. We welded the valve shut. The pressure is building. I'm seeing it in the scans. The amygdala isn't resetting. The trauma isn't being processed. It's leaking.
Dr. Thorne was the first to spot it. He called it the bleed. We didn't know it yet, but the golden era was over. The nightmare era was beginning. The brain, denied the ability to dream during sleep, began to dream during wakefulness. It started with the glitches. You'd be walking down the street, and for a split second, the pavement would turn into water. You'd blink, and it was pavement again. You'd be in a meeting, and your boss's face would briefly rotate upside down. We laughed it off at first. AR syndrome, they called it. Augmented reality sickness. But it wasn't technology. It was biology, fighting back. Accidents skyrocketed, not because of fatigue. Remember, the protocol ensured we were never tired. We were fully alert. But we were hallucinating. The subconscious mind began to overlay its imagery onto the physical world. The shadow people became a global phenomenon. Dark, silhouette figures standing in your peripheral vision. If you looked at them, they vanished. If you ignored them, they got closer. Psychosis became the new baseline. We couldn't tell the difference between memory, reality, and hallucination. Then came the drift. Entire populations began to dissociate simultaneously. You would be talking to a cashier, and suddenly, both of you would freeze. You would drift into a shared hallucination, a waking dream, where you were both somewhere else. Maybe a beach, maybe a war zone. Then, snap, you're back in the store. Productivity collapsed, not because we wouldn't work, but because we couldn't agree on what reality was. How can you build a bridge if the architect thinks the blueprints are made of snakes? The government tried to intervene. They mandated meditation breaks. They tried to enforce quiet hours. But you cannot legislate the subconscious. The dam had broken. We had deleted the night, so the darkness came for the day. The end didn't come with a bang. It came with a whisper. It was the sleep cults that saved us, the dormants. A small percentage of the population had refused the protocol for religious or medical reasons. They were the outcasts, the slow ones, the ones who wasted a third of their lives in the dark. But as the wakers descended into mass psychosis, the dormants became the caretakers of reality. They were the only ones who could drive a car without seeing dragons. They were the only ones who could perform surgery without hallucinating that the patient was their dead mother. The wakers begged for the cure. But there was no antidote to the protocol. The gene therapy was permanent. So we had to innovate. We invented the blackout helmets. We couldn't induce biological sleep. So we induced artificial comas. We built hibernation hives, vast warehouses where the wakers would go to be chemically sedated for 8 hours a day. We had to force the brain to shut down with heavy aesthetics just to stop the hallucinations. We reinvented sleep, but we stripped it of its comfort. It wasn't a warm bed anymore. It was a medical procedure. Society stabilized, but it was scarred. We look back at the era of light not as a golden age, but as a warning. We realized that human limitations are not bugs. They are features. We are not designed to be gods. We are designed to be rhythmic. We are designed to wax and wane like the moon. To be always on is to be a machine, and machines do not dream. You are watching this on a screen. Perhaps it is late. Perhaps your eyes are burning. Perhaps the algorithm is suggesting the next video and the next and the next. It wants you to stay awake. It wants your time. It wants your now. Don't give it to them. Your fatigue is a gift. It is your body telling you that you have had enough of this world for one day. It is an invitation to retreat, to go offline, to go to a place where there are no ads, no expectations, and no noise. Sleep is the ultimate rebellion. In a world that demands your total attention, closing your eyes is the most radical act of defiance you can perform. Do not let them patch your humanity. Protect your downtime. Disconnect to reconnect. The overwrite is complete.